Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of our podcast. Today we will talk about the cooking disaster. Are you ready? Okay, let's go. It all started one sunny Saturday morning when I woke up feeling unusually inspired to cook something special, something that would impress my friends who were coming over later that evening for a small dinner party, and although I wasn't exactly a master chef, I had watched enough cooking shows and read enough food blogs to convince myself that I could pull off a gourmet three-course meal. So I grabbed my phone, scrolled through some recipes, and finally settled on a fancy-sounding French menu. That included a goat cheese tart as an appetizer, coq au vin for the main course, and a delicate chocolate soufflé for dessert, which, in hindsight, was far too ambitious for someone whose idea of cooking usually involved boiling pasta and opening a jar of sauce, but I was determined to prove myself, so I jumped out of bed, made a detailed shopping list, and headed to the market, where I spent nearly 2 hours searching for all the ingredients, including some I couldn't even pronounce, like herbes de Provence and crème fraîche, and after finally returning home with 3 heavy bags full of groceries, I unpacked everything and laid them out on the counter like a contestant on a cooking show. Then I took a deep breath and started with the tart, which seemed like the easiest dish to begin with. But things went wrong almost immediately when I realized I had no idea how to make pastry dough from scratch and decided to improvise with frozen puff pastry, which I forgot to thaw in advance. So I put it in the microwave to defrost, but got distracted watching a video on how to slice shallots properly and ended up turning the dough into a soggy, half-cooked mess, which meant I had to start over, and since I didn't have any more pastry, I tried to make a simple crust using crushed crackers and butter, but the mixture wouldn't hold together, so I pressed it into the tart pan anyway and hoped for the best. Moving on to the filling, I managed to sauté the onions and mix them with the goat cheese, eggs, and cream, but when I poured it into the crust and baked it, the filling bubbled over and leaked into the oven, producing smoke that triggered the fire alarm and sent me running around the apartment with a dish towel, waving it under the smoke detector while my cat watched me with utter disapproval. But I didn't let that stop me. I turned off the alarm and opened all the windows, telling myself that the main dish would make up for the appetizer, so I started prepping the coq au vin, which involved marinating chicken in red wine with vegetables and herbs, but I didn't realize it was supposed to marinate for at least 4 hours, and since I didn't have that kind of time, I skipped the marinating step and jumped straight into browning the chicken, which splattered oil all over the kitchen and burned my hand when I accidentally grabbed the hot pan handle without a towel, and after adding the wine, I noticed it smelled strange, like it had gone sour, but I had no other wine and figured cooking it would kill any off flavors, so I added the vegetables and herbs, covered the pot, and let it simmer, hoping it would all come together in the end. But then came the dessert, the delicate chocolate soufflé, which I had never made before and didn't realize required perfectly stiff egg whites to rise properly, so I tried separating the eggs, but got yolk in the whites twice and had to start over. Then when I finally got clean whites and started whisking them, my electric mixer died halfway through, leaving me to beat them by hand with a whisk, which took forever and left my arms sore, and when I folded the chocolate mixture into the whites, I think I was too rough because it lost all its volume, but I poured it into the ramekins anyway and placed them gently into the oven, setting a timer with a hopeful heart, just as my friends arrived, all cheerful and unaware of the chaos that had taken place in my kitchen. And while I tried to act calm and collected, I could see the smoke stains on the oven and the flour on my shirt, and I quickly poured everyone a glass of wine to distract them while I plated the tart, which had a soggy bottom and slightly burnt edges, but they were polite and said it tasted interesting, which I took as a compliment. Then I served the coq au vin, which by some miracle actually smelled decent, though the chicken was slightly tough and the sauce a bit too salty. Yet they ate it anyway and even asked for seconds, which gave me a small boost of confidence until the soufflés came out of the oven, completely flat and sunken in the middle like chocolate puddles, and one of them had cracked down the center, but everyone clapped and said they looked rustic, and we laughed about the whole thing, sitting around the table, sipping wine, and telling stories, and despite all the mishaps and disasters, I realized that what mattered most wasn't the food but the company, and how trying to create something special brought us all closer together. So even though I swore to never attempt another three-course meal again without at least a week of preparation, I felt strangely proud of the chaos I had survived, because that evening turned into one of the most memorable nights I've ever had, and now, every time my friends come over, they ask if I'm making another one of my famous disasters, and we all laugh. Remembering the night the smoke alarms sang louder than the music and the soufflés deflated like my confidence, yet somehow everything turned out perfectly imperfect. So we come to the end of our podcast today. Thank you very much for completing the episode, and we'll see you in the next one. See you soon.